Afternoon everyone, evening, and welcome to Year 9's Options Evening. I'm Ben Chalmer, I'm the head teacher here, and it's a delight really to welcome you on what's a special night, isn't it? An important night really, as you start, I think you started at Parents' Evening last week to some extent, but continuing those conversations about what your child, what you are as a Year 9 pupil, planning to study going into Year 10 and 11, those GCSE years, those business years I suppose, when you're really starting to work towards those qualifications, which are important in terms of opening doorways, in terms of giving you the opportunities for the future of what path you want to take and where you want to go. Hopefully some of you have already started going around school today, started those conversations with some of the areas, but what this is about really is to give you a bit more information about the process, the different routes, and ultimately how you actually make that application, how you actually put down the choices you wish to study. So to talk you through that is my deputy head, Mr. Wall, who oversees all the curriculum work. So Andy, over to you.
Good evening. So hopefully you'll know that I spoke to the students last week regarding their options, and they were given one of these booklets to take home, which has got the information in. Also, alongside that, you should have received a school comms from us with the information in the booklet as well, and the two things should tie up. It should be the information that they took home is the same as the information we sent you. If it's not, please come and talk to us because we've made a mistake somewhere. But hopefully, therefore, you're already a bit prepped with what you're going to hear tonight. This is just going to extend on that a bit more and tell you about the application process. So, what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking about what subjects students have to take. There are certain compulsory subjects that all students take. And then I'm going to talk about the options they get to choose and the three different routes that they may be on, whether they're on core, guided or supported. So let's start with the compulsory subjects. What all students in middle school have to take at GCSE. Well, the first one, unsurprisingly, is English. All students will study English literature and language, and they'll get 2 GCSEs for that. Alongside that, again unsurprisingly, they'll all study maths. In fact, the good news for the students out there is that if you don't achieve grade 4 by the end of GCSE, you have to continue to study English and maths in year 12 and 13, whether you're on school or whether you go to college or do an apprenticeship. So it's really important that we get those grade 4 and aboves at GCSE. And for that reason, you'll be starting your GCSE work towards the end of year 9. Alongside that, all students take science. Now, the amount of science you take is slightly variable, and I'll come to this a bit later, but for the majority of students, that's what we call the dual award. That means you get 2 GCSEs from it. You're still studying the 3 different subjects, you're still doing some biology, some chemistry, some physics, but they combine together at the end to be 2 GCSEs. And the final GCSE that you'll all be taking is religious studies. Now, as you may know, it is compulsory for students to study religious studies in school up to the end of Key Stage 4, but we as a school therefore decide, as a church school, because you're already studying it, we want to enter you for the GCSE and get the qualification that goes alongside that. You'll notice there's still one to come, and this is not a GCSE subject. These are subjects which you'll do in addition to your GCSEs. There's no qualification, there's no examination in them, but you'll all do games. Games is just core PE, so it's the PE element that you're used to doing, but not the GCSE, so there's no qualification for it. Just get out there, do an exercise in your lessons, and you'll all study PSHE as well, which is a personal social health education covering your relationships, sex ed, drugs education, welfare, etc. And that'll continue to be done in your RS lessons. So all students have got those suite of subjects, irrespective of what route they are on. After that, it'll depend. And when your child or children got their options booklet, they should have seen inside, it will tell them which route they're on. This is a core route, it'll say at the top, and it'll also say throughout. So if they want a core route, the reason they're on that is we've looked at the data. Now, we have a vast array of data on your child or children, as you may expect, and we study that, but we don't just rely on the data, we also talk to the the various teachers, particularly their maths and English departments. We talk to the SEND department. We try to get a whole perspective picture on what the best route for your child or children is. This year's been slightly trickier because there's no Key Stage 2 SAT data to rely on. That's one of our key data that we use. But we have still got our CATs from Year 7, our reading NGRT tests from 7 Year 9, and of course the appropriate amount of progress data for the various assessments they've sat whilst in Year 7, 8 and 9. So that's where we get the data from. And from that, if you are in core routes, we've identified that this is the most appropriate programme for yourselves, or for your child. So what does that entail? Well, the first thing, if you're on the core route, or your child is on the core route, then they will study a language. What language they study is up to them. If they are already a single linguist, then obviously that decision is made for them because they'll be doing Spanish. But for the majority of students on the core route, they're a dual linguist, so they're already studying two languages, either French and Spanish or German and Spanish. So they need to choose one of those to study. Doesn't matter which one they choose. I say they need to choose one, but actually, when we get to the options process, you'll see that if they want to take a second language, that's fine as well. So they have to study one, but they may wish to choose to take two languages if they want to. But the necessity is to choose one. It's important, therefore, that you talk to your languages teachers and you go down and take this opportunity to go down to talk to languages this evening, because they all know best which subject of the two that your child or children are doing best in and what the GCSE entails. So I would recommend a visit down there if you're on the core route. If you're on the core route, you also will get the opportunity to study the EBAC, and I'll come to that in a bit more detail in a second. But you'll get to choose three options. Three free options. There are one or two limitations, but not many at all. And I'll put the list of subjects on the screen a bit later. And then it's about finding which subject suits your child or children. So that's the core route. I mentioned the EBAC, so I'm going to take this opportunity just to let you know what that is. So we would encourage all students on the core route to consider taking the EBAC. That doesn't mean to say they have to, but we would encourage them to look at it and consider it whether it's the right thing for them, because we believe it's an important thing for many of our students. It recognises students' achievement across a broad range of subjects. The EBAC isn't a qualification itself. You don't get a certificate to say, oh, I've achieved the EBAC, but what you do is you have taken a suite of subjects which show that you have that broad range across what the government see as facilitating subjects. Subjects that will try to open doors for you for academic futures. In order to do that, you need to take English. They'll all be doing that anyway, so that's the good news. Maths, already doing. Science, already doing. It's getting easier so far. So the decision really is over this one. If you want to take the EBAC suite, then you need to use an option to choose either history or geography. You can still choose both. It's not, you have to study just one, but you study at least one humanities subject. Sadly, RE does not count as a humanities subject for the EBAC. So that's a choice that your child or children will have to make for themselves this evening in discussion with yourselves. Do they want to take EBAC suite of qualifications? If so, then they'll need to choose either history or geography. And alongside that, as I mentioned, they'll be doing language, and so the language is the last element of the EBAC. So we would strongly encourage you to consider doing that if you are on the core route. The majority of students, I said, are on the core route. For some students, they're on the guided route. The reason being, the data would tell us that there may be some subjects which they may find a little bit more challenging than others, and we want to have that conversation with them before they make that choice. We're not saying they can't choose it. Just because you're on the guided route doesn't mean that there are some subjects you can't take. But what it means is there are some subjects that if you want to take, we'd like to have a conversation with you to make sure that it's the right subject that you're understanding that you might find it challenging, and so we want the conversation advised, which is why we call it guided. However, if you're on the guided route, you don't have to do a language, but instead you have to do a humanities. So you have to choose history or geography. Again, you can take both if you want to, but you must choose one instead of a language. You may choose a language, but you don't have to choose one. As I said, there's guidance for some of the subjects, and I'll put the list which are the guidance subjects on the board in a minute. But you take 3 option subjects, like with the core, and again, that's your choice as to which those 3 subjects are. So that's our guided route. The final route is the supported route. Again, for the supported route, you're a student who we feel needs a bit of additional support, particularly with the core subjects, particularly with your English, maths and science, and therefore, in order to do that, we're going to suggest you take 1 fewer GCSE and benefit from additional study support lessons. So those study support lessons take place in one of the option subject blocks, and they will be focusing on those 3 things. 2 out of the 5 lessons to fortnight will be on English, 2 will be on maths, and 1 will be focused on science. Additional support from subject specialists to help to try to achieve at least a grade 4 in those subjects. You still need to take a humanities, you don't need to take a language on the supported route. But there's then 2 options to choose, because one of those options, the third one, is for the supported study lessons. There's 2 other options to choose if you want the supported route. Now, all that information, as I said, is in the booklet, so hopefully you've got that to hand, but if you haven't, if you just scan the QR code, which is on the thing you sent this evening, it's all online as well, and you can access those if you're unsure as you go around. But there are 3 routes. Hopefully that's made that quite clear. So what are the subjects that you can take? Well, these are the list. So we've got art, business studies, design and technology, drama, food, geography, history, IT, OCR National, music technology, BTEC, and PE or sports, OCR National. What's the difference between an OCR National, a BTEC, and a GCSE? Well, an OCR National and a BTEC is an equivalent qualification to a GCSE, so it's worth the same value, but they tend to have a more practical element or more controlled assessment in them, so more coursework in old money. If you want to know more, of course, go and speak to the subjects individually about them. Those are the subjects that are open to all students. And then the other subjects are the ones which are on the guided list, so that if you're on the guided supported pathway, we're not saying you can't study it, but we'd like to just have a conversation with you before you choose them to make sure that they are right for you. And they are computer science, economics, a language, and triple science. So it's worth noting the difference between triple and double science at this moment in time. The main difference is there's a lot more science. Now, I appreciate for some people that sounds like an awful thing. You know, you've already got to do 2 lots of science. How can you do a 3rd lot as well? But for some people, actually, the idea of spending at least some part of every day up in the science block is a dream come true. It depends on the sort of person you are. If you are a scientific sort of person, you love science, please go and talk to the science departments about triple science, because that seems ideal for you. If you go to science and think, oh no, it's science, please don't take triple science. You're not going to enjoy your GCSEs with lots and lots more science. But inevitably, what it is you take a separate GCSE in the 3 subjects. You'll do 1 in biology, 1 in chemistry, and 1 in physics. And you get 3 GCSEs as opposed to 2. The next thing I'd like to point out is the PE and sports studies. This is the only combination that you can't take together. You can't take PE and sports studies. They're too close an overlap between the 2 subjects. So what you will choose is you'll choose to do either PE or sports studies. Then the PE department will look at who we've got and they'll have a conversation with the students to decide which of those 2 is the most appropriate course for you. So you can't take both, it's one or the other. Other than that, you can take any combination. Now, please bear in mind, if you take music, tech and drama, you're narrowing down your fields quite considerably. For some students, however, if you're passionate about the foreign arts and you want to go into the foreign arts, that's fine. It's fine to narrow it down because that's an area you really want to go into. So we're not saying you can't, but just think about the combination. I encourage you to have a conversation with your child or children to think about, is that a good, broad and balanced combination? Or, if they have a particular passion, does that meet what their passion is? There are 2 new subjects on the list, business studies and economics. It's worth going and finding out whether that's an interesting subject for you. Every year we get some students who think, wow, it's a new subject, it's got to be better than the subjects I've been forced to take for the last 2.5 years, I'm going to stick them down. actually that's not a reason to choose it. Just because it's new is not a reason to take it, but just because it's new is not a reason not to take it. You're not disadvantaged because you haven't done it previously. It's new for all students. So please go down the social studies corridor, which is at the end of languages, to find out a bit more about those subjects if it's something that might interest you. The last thing I would say at this moment in time is, although tonight you'll be going around, you'll be talking to lots of teachers, please bear in mind that as teachers we are all inherently biased. We all love our subject. After all, we've spent our entire life dedicated to this subject. We don't understand why a student wouldn't want to take our subject or doesn't have a passion in our subject. So when you go round, we will all persuade you and try our best to tell you that our subjects are the best subjects that there is. Take that with a pinch of salt. It may be the best subject for that teacher. It may be for someone who loves that subject. It may not be the best subject for your child if they don't have an interest in it. So it's worth going and talking to teachers. They are a fountain of knowledge. They know the subjects better than anyone else. But also bear in mind, they are slightly biased and want people to take their subjects. My subject, before anybody asks, is RE, which you've got to take anyway. So I'm completely neutral, so you can come and talk to me. There are a couple of important things I do need to make you aware of. The first is you must take a reserved subject. You must choose one. Please don't fall into the trap of thinking, if I don't choose a reserved subject, then my child won't have to take it, therefore they'll get the 3 they opted in the first place. Sadly, that doesn't happen. If they don't choose a reserved subject, then we will have to choose one for them, should they need one. So they need to choose a reserved subject. Why, I can hear you ask? No one's asking why, but you may want to know the answer why, and it's in case you can't get to take all your subjects. That may be because there's too few students to take it. That rarely happens at GCSE. We normally get good students numbers in every subject, but there's always the possibility that 2 students only have decided to take a subject and we're not viable to run it with those numbers. So they would, in that case, need a backup. More likely is a subject might be oversubscribed. We will do our best to put on as many classes as we can, but we are obviously limited by their capacity, the timetable, and the staffing that we have in school. So occasionally, it means that we can't run as many classes as we'd like, and therefore we have too many students, particularly in subjects where there are limitations due to health and safety. Or finally, sometimes it's just the sheer combination of options doesn't work. We do everything we can. We have wonderful software these days that helps us to look at every possible combination, but sometimes it is just impossible to get every child's combination in mathematically into the timetable model. If one of those 3 happens, we will look at those students who put them down as their least high option, so their 3rd option. And they were the students that we'll look to first to go to the reserve. So it's really important when you get your child to take fill in their options form that they do it in preference order. I will re-emphasise that point because it's always, it's never an easy thing when I have to make a phone call to say, unfortunately, your child isn't going to be able to do the option. I don't want someone to say, no one told me I had to put it down in preference order. So please, you do need to put it in preference order. Therefore, we will work on the assumption that we'll try to get you to number 1 choice first, then your 2nd choice, and then if there is students who have to miss out, it'll be those students that put it down as their 3rd choice, or the lowest choice that they have. So, please put them down in preference order. But we will do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. Not that we just sort of think, oh, we'll just throw it in there, use the same model as last year, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We do try everything we can. We will only use that if it really is necessary and there's no other option. So, how do you apply? Well, hopefully, your child will receive an email today to their school email address, which sends them to our new software. We're using a new bit of software this year, so if you've got an older child in the school, you'll have had a Google form, or maybe you can even remember back to when we were doing paper-based systems. We're using new software this year, which hopefully will make it easier, and your child should receive a link to their school email. Please, if they haven't checked, can you ask them to check either tonight or tomorrow to make sure they have, and if they haven't got it, come and let us know immediately. It's worth checking the junk folder just in case. I don't believe any have gone in from what students have said so far, but it's always worth checking. When they log in, it'll look at something a bit like this. Now, when I did this in my first talk, it had logged me out and stopped working, but hopefully this is now working again. But it'll look a bit like this. It'll have on the right-hand side the criteria linked to the particular route that your child is on. So this is for the guided route, this particular one, but it'll have the core route, it'll have the information for them or the supports route for them. And on the left-hand side, it'll have the subjects that they're able to choose from. So, they need to click on the subjects, obviously. Because this one is a guided route, they need to choose either history or geography, and then they choose 4. 4 because it's the 3 they're opting for, and 1 reserve one. The easiest way to do this is to do it in the order of preference, but if they don't, they can change it afterwards to make sure you get the right ones in the right order. But we're going to go with art, and we're going to take economics, because although they're guided, we've had a conversation and we think that's perfectly fine. And we go with OCR IT National, and then for their backup, they're going to put down music. You'll see that it's gone green because they've chosen the 4 subjects that they need to choose. The whole thing hasn't gone green yet, though, because I haven't chosen my geography or history. I'm going to choose geography in this occasion. The whole thing goes green, which means we've got it right. Then we need to click on the rank your preference. You can't not click on rank your preference or it doesn't submit it. So you click on rank your preference, and you'll see that you can move them. So if suddenly we're thinking, actually, do you know what? I'm not sure I'm that keen on economics. Perhaps I'm going to change that. So I'm going to put that down as my 4th choice, and I'm going to move music to my number 1 choice. This is the bit where it's really important that you do that before submitting it. So once that's done, your child then clicks submit their choice, and I'm not going to do that because then I can't use this again as my dummy account, but then that'll send an email off. Not to the school yet, the email will go to your email address as a parent. So this is where the safeguarding comes in to make sure that you're happy. When you get that, you need to check, are you happy with both the options your child has chosen and the order in which they've chosen? If you're not happy, you need to fight it out with them. Okay? By the time you submit it to school, we're not going to be negotiating between you. We're going to work on the assumption that once it's come to us, you're happy with your child's options. So please have that argument at home. And obviously, we all know parents know best, and therefore you have the right to veto. But come to that agreement and then submit it. Once that's then submitted, we can then start to put our options together and work on the blocks. If at any stage that hasn't worked, as I said, there's a contact details on the booklet. Either email myself or Miss Toms, who oversees the actual Applica system, and will help you out if there are any problems. So, before I finish, when I spoke to students, I gave them some reasons for choosing. I thought I'd share these with you, because these are often asked from parents as well. The first thing is, I've told the students, just because your parents like a subject doesn't mean to say that you should take it. Okay? And I know that's a brave thing to say, with a lot of glaring parents now looking at me angrily, but actually it is true. Just because I love the subject at school doesn't mean to say my son likes it at the moment. It's really important as parents that, yes, we guide and we support, but we also take that objective step back and allow the student to choose what's right for them. Likewise, siblings are really good people to talk to, but they don't always have the same preferences and the same choices. So, yes, use siblings, but don't rely on them. Please don't let your child think, I've never studied it before, therefore I'm going to study it. That's not a reason to take it. Take it because they like the subject, not because it's new. And please, don't let them take it because they like their teacher. It's wonderful if you like the teacher. We love it when we're liked as teachers, but there's no guarantee they're going to get that teacher next year. The teacher may or may not take the GCSE, and even if they do, most subjects have multiple classes, and therefore the chance of them getting that teacher is slim, so that's not a reason to take it. Don't let them tell you it's an easy subject. There's no such thing as an easy GCSE. Depends on your skill set. My easiest GCSE, I have to admit, was maths. I found that the easiest. My hardest GCSE was, well, it was French. I found that the hardest. I got the same grade in the end, and I was proud of that fact. But actually, everybody has different subjects that they find easy and difficult, depends on who they are. And please, 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 do not let them choose a subject just because their friends are taking it. that's never a good option. Because what happens is their friends love the subject, we get halfway through year 10 and they regret it because they're not in the same class as their friend, or even if they are, they're sat somewhere on the other side of the room, not enjoying it because it's not for them. Every child is different. You've got to find a subject that suits you. Choose it because they're good at it, choose it because they already enjoy it, choose it because they want to take the A back, choose it because they know what they want to do after GCSEs and it links to what their career path would be our recommendations. So, this evening you'll get a chance to look around the subjects. If you haven't already done so, please continue to do so. Students should have been emailed the link to the form. They need to check and get that filled in. And then there is the deadline. The deadline is Friday the 23rd. That's the week after half term. So you've got this week, you've got half term to discuss it at home. Then you've got a week to submit that form. Although you can submit it tonight if you've already decided. If you submit it and change your mind, don't worry. It's not locked in. We can change it. You just need to let us know. But if you miss the deadline, doesn't mean to say you don't get to take options next year, but it means that actually we can't guarantee that you'll necessarily get to take the ones you want. You'll go to the bottom of the order in terms of priorities, and also, once the option blocks are decided, we can't undo them. So maybe that your child's combination doesn't fit the option blocks, therefore, get it in by deadline, get it then for, unless it's impossible, we'll do everything we can to make sure all the students get to do their options that they can. So, that's it from me this evening. Hopefully that's been useful and helpful. Please do continue to look around the school. I'll be around for a bit, Mr. Challenger's around for a bit, Mr. Brooks is around for a bit, Mrs. Mazurkovic, who's hiding behind the camera at the back, he's around for a bit. And we're just filming this to put it on the website for those who aren't here, who know what's going on. So please do come and talk to us if you've got any questions, and if not, all the best with the options process. Thank you for listening.